from the first album, I've sung on the albums. I've sung in Gaelic, in Latin, I've sung in Japanese, I've sung in so many different languages, and it's really to sort of capture the emotional feeling of the song.
She sold over 80 million albums, but chose silence over fame.
So I always think fame, success are two different things. So I didn't really have to become so famous to sell the music. The music has sort of sold by it.
For decades, Enya lived in seclusion, her life defined by mystery, solitude, and quiet sorrow. Despite global success, she stayed hidden, letting her music speak. Now at 63, she steps into the light, confirming what many long suspected. Her voice, once only heard in song, finally shares the truth behind the enigma that captivated the world for so long. The enigma of Enya. Enya's career is one of the most unusual success stories in music. She became a legend without touring, without constant interviews, and without living under the spotlight. While the world's biggest stars were chasing fame and filling arenas, Enya created a different kind of legacy. She became the most private artist the industry had ever seen. And now, after decades of silence, we finally know the truth about why she lives the way she does. Enya rose to fame in 1988, when she released Watermark. This album wasn't just successful, it became a global phenomenon. And at the center of it all was one song, Orinoco Flow. This track was unlike anything on the radio at the time. Its opening lines, the layered harmonies, and the sailing imagery all felt like stepping into another world. People couldn't stop listening. The song topped the UK singles chart, reached the US Billboard charts, and turned Enya into an international star almost overnight. Watermark went on to sell over 8 million copies worldwide, a staggering number for an artist who had barely given a single interview at the time. What made her music so addictive was her signature sound. Enya created something that didn't fit into the normal categories of pop, rock, or classical. Instead, she mixed elements of Celtic tradition, classical arrangements, and modern studio techniques. But the real magic was her voice. Enya layered her vocals again and again, sometimes recording dozens of harmonies on a single track. The result was this lush, otherworldly sound, like a choir of angels with Enya's face on every voice. Producers and music critics tried to describe it with words like ethereal and haunting, but fans didn't need fancy terms. They just knew it felt different. After Watermark, Enya could have disappeared into the shadows again, but instead, she gave the world more. In 1991, she released Shepherd Moons. If anyone thought her first album was a lucky break, this record proved them wrong. It reached #1 in the UK, cracked the top 20 in the US, and earned her the first of her Grammy Awards. Years later, she delivered another cultural landmark with A Day Without Rain in 2000. This album included Only Time, the song that would become her signature hit after Orinoco Flow. It's impossible to forget how Only Time found its way into nearly every emotional montage, commercial, and even national moment of grief. This track carried a kind of comfort that people around the world leaned on during one of the darkest times in modern history. By the time the dust settled, A Day Without Rain had sold an estimated 16 million copies, making it Enya's most successful album. She didn't stop there. In 2015, she came back once again with Dark Sky Island. The album debuted in the top 10 in both the UK and the US, proving that even decades into her career, her music still had the power to capture imaginations. Fans who had grown up with her in the late 80s could finally share her songs with their children and keep the magic alive for a new generation. Of course, the awards started piling up. Enya became one of the most decorated Irish artists in history. She won 4 Grammy Awards out of 9 nominations. She picked up 6 World Music Awards. And when Hollywood came calling, she wrote May It Be for The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, earning both an Academy Award nomination and a Golden Globe nomination. Even recently, in 2025, she was honored with the RTA Choice Music Prize for Watermark, a recognition that came nearly 4 decades after the album's release. Her commercial success is just as staggering as her awards shelf. With more than 80 million albums sold worldwide, Enya sits only behind U2 as the best-selling Irish act of all time. That's not a small feat when you consider how many global icons have come from Ireland. Yet Enya managed it without extensive touring, without music videos plastered everywhere, and without the non-stop publicity that most stars rely on. Another thing that set her apart was her use of language. Most artists sing in English and occasionally branch out. However, Enya took it much further. She recorded songs in Gaelic, Latin, French, and even in languages that weren't real in the traditional sense. She recorded in Tolkien's Elvish, bringing fantasy literature to life through music. She and lyricist Roma Ryan even created a completely new language called Loxian, used in several of her later songs. This was part of how she built her universe. This imaginative approach helped her build a world of her own where listeners didn't need to translate every word, because the music and emotion spoke directly to the heart. Enya's achievements are unmatched, but her music only tells half the story. Away from the awards and record-breaking sales, she chose a life few could imagine. In the silence of her castle walls, with no tours, flashing cameras, and public presence, Enya built a world of isolation. While this choice has given her peace, it has also come with a heavy cost. A life marked by loneliness. Enya lives a life unlike almost any other star at her level. Fame usually means endless tours, sold-out arenas, late-night talk shows, and cameras flashing every time you leave the house. However, Enya chose the opposite path. She has never gone on a single world tour. She rarely agrees to interviews, and she avoids public appearances almost entirely. In fact, her fans sometimes joke that she is more myth than person, because seeing her in public feels as rare as spotting a comet in the night sky. This distance from the spotlight has made her music even more mysterious, but it has also come with its own cost. A life marked by deep solitude. Her reclusive habits connect directly to the way she works. Most artists can record an album in a few months if they keep a good pace. However, Enya's process moves in the opposite direction. Every track she records is built layer by layer. She stacks her voice hundreds of times, sometimes recording the same line repeatedly until it fits perfectly into her soundscape. These long, meticulous sessions can stretch on for years. By the time an album is finished, she has poured herself so completely into the work that she is left emotionally drained. She once admitted that after some of these recording marathons, she can be withdrawn and difficult to be with, describing the heavy toll it takes on her mind and her mood. This confession, while shocking, gave fans a rare glimpse into the emotional weight behind the perfection of her art. But when the studio lights switch off, Enya returns to her private sanctuary, Manderley Castle in Killiney, just outside Dublin. The castle itself feels like a symbol of who she is, grand, beautiful, and guarded from the outside world. Behind its high walls, Enya lives alone. Her closest companions are her cats, who wander freely through the halls. To some, this might sound like loneliness, but in her own words, this lifestyle brings her peace. After the demands of creating music that will reach millions, the quiet of the castle is where she can finally breathe. It is solitude by choice, a retreat she has defended time and again against the pressures of fame. Unfortunately, even within her peace, there have been moments when her privacy was shaken in disturbing ways. In 1996, she endured one of her first major stalking incidents. An Italian man followed her movements for over a year. His obsession grew so severe that he even showed up at her family's pub, causing scenes that ultimately led him to hurt himself. The ordeal was so heartbreaking, it left a scar on how Enya viewed the outside world. Years later, in 2005, another intruder managed to break into Manderley Castle itself. He tied up one of her maids and searched for Enya inside the property. Terrified, she locked herself in a panic room until the police arrived. This was the kind of experience most people would expect to see in a crime movie, and for Enya, it was a terrifying reality. Sadly, after that, her already private lifestyle became even more tightly protected. These incidents fed into a pattern of emotional isolation. She has been open, in her own quiet way, about how deeply she gives herself to music. She once confessed, "I want and need to be on my own." What sort of man would be able to adapt? Falling madly in love and getting married would be the most horrific thing that could happen. My affairs are with melody and words and beautiful sounds. I had partners, but I find long relationships, well, how can I say it without appearing strange? I'm too devoted to my music. Some people think it sounds sad, but believe me, I'm happy. I am my music. To Enya, love, companionship, and traditional relationships often seemed less important than the melodies she was chasing. It is as if the hours spent in the studio became her true relationships, and the songs themselves became her partners. Her family, while proud of her success, has also spoken about this distance. They described her as living like a queen within the walls of her castle, but also admitted that she has become something of a recluse. Even though her siblings are in music themselves, and she comes from a famously close Irish family, her choice to live alone and keep to herself has set her apart from them. This distance is not rooted in bitterness or conflict, but in her deliberate decision to keep the world at arm's length. Enya remains one of the most listened-to artists in the world, yet she is also one of the least seen. Millions know her voice instantly, yet few can say they know her as a person. Her music fills weddings, funerals, movies, and television, but her personal world is locked away behind the walls of her castle. And while her home gives her safety and serenity, it also stands as a symbol of her emotional isolation that's beautiful on the outside, yet unreachable within. But there's more to Enya's loneliness, because when you take a closer look, you'd realize that the walls around her life did not only keep her safe, they also hid some shocking controversies and disputes that almost no one expected from an artist as quiet and guarded as she is. The hidden controversies. For someone who has lived most of her life in silence, away from the cameras, Enya's career has not been free of controversy. The public image of her as a quiet, mysterious artist doesn't always match the stories that unfolded behind closed doors. Over the years, a few disputes, rumors, and criticisms have followed her, not because she sought them, but because her unusual career choices defied what people expected from a global star. One of the earliest sources of friction came from the way her music was labeled. From the start of her success, critics and music stores placed Enya's albums under the category of New Age. It seemed like a convenient box to put her in, since her sound didn't match mainstream pop or rock. But Enya herself never liked the label. To her, the term felt limiting, almost dismissive. She preferred to describe her style as rooted in Celtic traditions with influences from classical music. Her team also made it clear that her work was not meant to be background music for meditation or yoga, even if many listeners used it that way. This disagreement over genre might seem small, but for an artist who valued precision and creative control, it mattered deeply. Enya has made it clear that she wants her music to be understood on its own terms, not reduced to a catch-all label that ignores the depth of her craft. Even earlier in her career, tensions had brewed within her own family's band. Before stepping into the spotlight as a solo artist, Enya was part of Clannad, the group that first introduced her to recording and touring. In 1982, she left the band to work with producer Nicky Ryan and lyricist Roma Ryan, a decision that sparked rumors of conflict. Members of Clannad were said to have warned her that leaving the band would destroy her chances of fame. They believed she was risking everything by stepping away from an established act. Enya, however, chose independence. While this decision proved to be the turning point in her life, it also left a shadow of tension that fans and journalists have whispered about ever since. The stories of that split have been passed around for decades, often painted as a battle between loyalty to family and the pursuit of personal vision. Her relationship with the media has also been extremely complicated. Journalists have often expressed frustration with Enya's approach to publicity. Most stars, especially those selling millions of records, appear on talk shows, give endless interviews, and attend major press events to promote their work. Enya rarely does any of that. She prefers to let the music speak for itself, which has sometimes left reporters feeling shut out. When she does agree to interviews, they are often short and carefully managed, and sometimes include Nicky Ryan by her side. In fact, one industry insider told journalists, "Throughout the music business, there's no one else who is so successful about whom so little is known." She doesn't socialize, she's barely seen out of the house, and there aren't any clues in her lyrics about her life. Even at her album launches, label bosses will hold a large event rather than ask her to do individual interviews, as they make her so uncomfortable. She's a huge question mark. To critics, this makes her seem distant, even controlling. But to her supporters, it is simply her way of protecting her boundaries. Either way, it has created an image of an artist who gives the bare minimum of herself to the press, while giving everything to her recordings. This unusual relationship with the media has made her something of an anomaly in the music industry. Enya has achieved massive success without following the usual rules of stardom. She doesn't tour. She doesn't flood social media with updates. And she doesn't maintain a public persona designed to keep her in the headlines. Instead, she disappears for years at a time and then reappears with a new album that sells millions. This model seems almost impossible in today's celebrity-driven world, yet Enya has proven it can be done. She built her career in a way that challenges every assumption about what it takes to be famous. But what stands out the most about Enya is how consistent she has been with making choices that put her art first. While these choices have sometimes created rifts, they've also given her the freedom to remain true to herself. The result is a career surrounded by whispers, rumors, and questions that have never fully been answered. To date, people still speculate about the details of her break from Clannad, about her guarded approach to the press, and about the quiet friction that follows an artist who succeeds on her own terms. And it was this hidden tension that made her rare return to the public eye all the more gripping. When Enya finally stepped out after years of silence, it wasn't just another celebrity appearance. It felt like a historic moment, the kind of sighting fans had waited for as if it might never come. First public appearance in years. In May 2025, the world caught a rare glimpse of Enya. After years away from the public eye, she appeared at a wedding in Donegal, Ireland. It was the first time fans had seen her in person since 2017. Photos of her appearance spread quickly online, sparking excitement across music forums and social media. Admirers praised how graceful she looked, noting that time seemed to have done little to change her presence. For fans who had grown used to her long silences and complete absence from public events, this wedding sighting felt like a small but meaningful reminder that Enya was still out there, still living quietly while the rest of the world carried on. What made the moment even more striking was how unusual it was. Enya's reclusiveness has been so consistent that even a simple event like attending a wedding is seen as headline-worthy. For 8 years, she had not been photographed or spotted at any official gathering. Her rare decision to appear among friends and family in Donegal carried weight, especially because it stood in such contrast to her carefully guarded privacy. This sudden appearance reassured her followers that, despite the layers of mystery, she still connected with her roots and people close to her life. However, just a few months later, the joy of that sighting was overshadowed by heartbreaking news. On September 10, 2025, Nicky Ryan, Enya's longtime producer, manager, and creative partner, passed away at St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin at the age of 79. His death was reported with few details, as the cause was not publicly disclosed. To the outside world, he may have seemed like just a member of her professional team, but to Enya, Nicky Ryan was central to everything. He had been there from the very beginning of her solo career, guiding her sound, protecting her image, and making sure her work was released exactly the way she wanted. Enya herself once explained that the trio of herself, Nicky Ryan, and lyricist Roma Ryan was so essential that if even one of them were removed, the entire structure of their creative world would collapse. This statement showed just how deeply intertwined their roles were. Nicky handled production and sound design. Roma crafted the lyrics, often writing in multiple languages or even inventing them, as with Loxian. Enya, of course, composed the melodies and delivered the vocals that defined their signature sound. Together, they formed Aigle Music, an independent label and studio that allowed them complete freedom from major industry pressures. Inside the walls of Aigle, they built a creative process that was unlike anything else in the business. Rather than bouncing between big city studios and dozens of producers, they kept everything close-knit and controlled. The trio worked slowly, carefully layering sound upon sound, until each track reached the level of perfection they demanded. Nicky Ryan's role was more than technical. He shaped the atmosphere, ensuring the studio was a place where Enya could focus completely on her art without distractions. Sadly, losing him in 2025 marked the end of an era in music. For over 4 decades, his presence had been inseparable from Enya's success. Fans who followed her journey understood immediately that his passing would leave a gap that no one else could fill. Tributes poured in, not only for his role in producing her sound, but also for the way he helped protect her from the relentless demands of fame. He was the shield, the negotiator, and the craftsman who made sure Enya's vision remained intact. But even before his passing, Enya and her team had been looking back at their legacy with pride. In September 2023, to mark the 35th anniversary of Watermark, they revisited the album that first carried her voice to global audiences. A Dolby Atmos mix of Orinoco Flow was released, giving fans a new way to experience the iconic track in immersive sound. Around the same time, a 6-disc vinyl box set titled A Box of Dreams was launched, collecting highlights of her career in a format that appealed to both longtime collectors and younger listeners discovering vinyl for the first time. To make the celebration more personal, Enya hosted a YouTube watch party, inviting fans around the world to revisit Watermark together. This was a rare gesture of connection that finally bridged the distance she usually maintains between herself and her audience. The Watermark anniversary was a reminder of just how much Enya's debut changed music forever. When it first came out in 1988, nobody had heard anything like it. Her sound didn't fit on any normal radio playlist, but it still reached millions. Even decades later, its influence is still everywhere. New artists call her an inspiration, and her songs keep showing up in movies, commercials, and unforgettable cultural moments, proving that Enya's music hadn't lost a bit of its magic, even while she stayed completely out of the spotlight. By 2025, though, fans will have been waiting 10 long years for a new studio album. People are starting to wonder if she will ever release music again. And after that unexpected sighting at the Donegal wedding, her first public appearance in years, the speculations have grown even bigger. The question is, where is Enya now? And what comes next for the most private superstar in the world? Where is Enya now? Today, Enya remains in the place that has long symbolized her mystery, Manderley Castle in Killiney, Dublin. She purchased the sprawling estate in 1997 for around £2.5 million, though its current value is believed to be far higher. The castle sits on a cliff overlooking the Irish Sea, hidden behind tall walls and heavy gates, the perfect retreat for someone who treasures her privacy above all else. Locals say she is rarely seen in the neighborhood. Her life inside the castle is quiet, shared mostly with her cats, which once numbered as many as 12. For Enya, Manderley is more than a home. It is a fortress, a sanctuary, and the stage for her decades of creative work. A neighbor once told journalists, when she bought the castle, there was a lot of work done and plenty of money put into security. Cameras, gates, and lights. People come looking for it from all over the world. But you can't see through the gates. You wouldn't even know there was anyone there most of the time. Financially, Enya has remained one of the wealthiest musicians in Ireland. Her estimated net worth stands somewhere between $140 million and $158 million. Unlike many celebrities, she hasn't relied on constant touring or brand deals. Her fortune continues to grow steadily through royalties from her back catalog, licensing agreements, samples, and the reissue of her older work. With her songs appearing in films, commercials, and even sampled in modern hits, she has built a financial security that allows her to continue living on her own terms without pressure to chase the spotlight. Dark Sky Island, released in 2015, was her last project, and the 10-year gap has fueled endless speculation about whether she plans to record again. In 2025, rumors of her retirement began to spread online, especially after the death of her longtime producer and partner in sound, Nicky Ryan. However, reports have clarified that she is not retired. She is said to still be working quietly, though at her usual slow and meticulous pace. Enya has always been known for long gaps between albums, so another extended silence has not come as a complete surprise. Even without a new album, her influence continues to ripple through the industry. In recent years, one of the most notable uses of her work came in Metro Boomin' and The Weeknd's hit Creepin', which sampled her 1987 track Boadicea. The haunting melody of her original piece blended seamlessly into a song that reached a new generation of listeners. But this wasn't the first time Boadicea had been sampled. The track has been borrowed by artists ranging from the Fugees to Mario Winans. But its presence in a major 2020s hit reminded everyone that Enya's sound remains timeless. Her music crosses decades, finding its way into different genres without ever losing its distinct identity. When it comes to collaborators, Roma Ryan remains firmly by her side. Roma has been her lyricist, close friend, and creative partner since the beginning, writing the words that have shaped so many of Enya's songs. Together, they've built not just music, but an entire imaginative world, filled with multiple languages and layers of meaning. With Nikki Ryan gone, Roma is the last member of that original trio still working with her. As of now, there has been no announcement of a new producer stepping in to take his place. That absence has left fans wondering what direction her future music might take, and whether she will ever find another working relationship as seamless as the one she shared with Nikki. Outside of music, questions about Enya's personal life have always lingered. She has never married, and no long-term partner has ever been publicly confirmed. Over the years, she has occasionally spoken about why she chose this path, explaining that she values her independence and that her lifestyle would be difficult for most partners to adapt to. In 2025, rumors surfaced that she had quietly ended a long-term relationship, though no details ever emerged. True to her nature, she neither confirmed nor denied the speculation. What is clear is that she has remained consistent in her approach to love and companionship. She chooses solitude. To some, her solitude may seem like loneliness, but to Enya, it is a choice she has stood by for decades. Her affairs, as she once described them, have always been with music, not with partners, not with public life, and certainly not with the expectations of others. It is this commitment to her independence that has kept her life so mysterious, even as her songs continue to circulate around the globe. So where is Enya today? She is in her castle by the sea, surrounded by music, memories, and the quiet she has always needed. She remains one of the most successful and wealthy artists Ireland has ever produced, with a legacy secure and a fan base that continues to wait patiently for whatever comes next. Whether she releases another album or decides that Dark Sky Island was her final chapter, her place in music history is already carved in stone. Her voice, her sound, and her presence, as elusive as they may be, have outlasted every trend and continue to define what it means to be truly timeless. Why do you think Enya lives so privately? Tell us in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.